MyMichelleLive Sports Timeout. The fans, the field, the faith, the fun. Here's Michelle.
Aha, here's Michelle and the gang. It's so good. I love these guys. I mean, these are my brothers, and we are here to sports. Brent Baker, sports photographer and reporter, author of a crazy awesome book that will be coming out next month, if I'm correct, at least soon. Breaking yesterday.
Pre-orders in a week.
Woohoo!
Excellent.
Hey! Rich Hallstrom. He is an author. He's a veteran sports reporter from the great Northwest. He's the official 12th man of the Seattle Seahawks, and he is our sports encyclopedia. Hallstrom, Rich Hallstrom. Garrick Payne. He is a coach. He is a pastor. He's a chaplain. He's all around cool guy. He is with us as well. Garrick Payne. Chris Brown, author of Thunder Sports Network. He is the man we call a villain because he always has a differing point of view, and yet we love him. Hello, America. Pay attention. That's how it works. Joshua McMillan, our very own Wookiee, who you'll hear him as our man on the street when you're allowed to go out on the street because he lives in Washington State. He is our sports authority, and you can tweet him at Josh Reports Live because he is a tweetheart. And my friend from high school, yes, he is indeed. He has played football. It has been his passion and his career. He's got a Hall of Fame ring to prove it, and he's a pretty cool guy, Tom Fisher. Guys, time to sports it up. I have to ask you before we talk about some of the cool things that have taken place this week, tomorrow's game that I'm excited about because we're mostly Seahawks fans here. Will 2020 and even the resulting championships from 2020 and early 2021, will they come with an asterisk?
I don't think so. I think
In our
College ball, though? College ball, even?
Well, even though it's different, you have an additional set of challenges you have to deal with that other teams in the past have never had to deal with. Like you look at the Seahawks, they haven't had one positive COVID test come, throughout since August. That's part of what these teams have to deal with, and part of what you have to do to win a championship that no other teams before have had to do. So it's a different scenario, but you have a totally different dynamic that's new, and how teams navigate it is part of what it's going to take to win something.
I think that sorry, Rich.
No
I
problem.
think that if Ohio State wins, yeah, it's an asterisk because they play like half the games everybody. But they're not going to win though. That's the whole thing.
Amen.
I think they're going to be obliterated and destroyed, especially now. They wanted to do the whole the whole reference to them not having COVID on their team after playing like 2 or 3 weekends. So they wanted to do that when they scored in the game the other night. But now they're having problems. And I say, hey, well, y'all, you were so awesome then. Now you got to man up and you're going to go face Bama. I think if Bama takes it, which I really think they will, I think they're a better team. I think they shouldn't have an asterisk because even though there was a lack, there was definitely in both phases of football, pro, college, this season, the mark of this season was an advantage on offense because you could hear, all the audibles and quarterbacks really had the run of the field to change plays and everything. And defenses were cluing in sometimes, and sometimes they weren't. And so, and the other thing is, I believe that there is a mental layer that this is just me. I believe there's a mental layer that slowed things down a little bit on defense because of COVID. I think what we saw just offenses going wild, just wild.
Excellent point.
And so, I think that, but I don't think it's worth an asterisk though. Some years we have that. Some years we have offenses going wild when maybe newfangled things happen. So yeah, I think they slugged it out on the field, except for the Big Ten.
No asterisk of Alabama is going to take Ohio State to the woodshed by 17 points. Justin Fields may be carried off on a stretcher, folks. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Nick Saban is a better coach than Day at Ohio State. Every advantage is in Alabama's favor. Now, as far as the NFL goes, they completed a regular season, and it's just like any other regular season, except you had some major challenges. And that's what football players do, is overcome challenges both on and off the field. So there's no
I think that's
asterisk.
a good point, that's really asterisk or not. That's how life is. You got to take what comes and you've got to be able to overcome it. Life doesn't give us perfect conditions. Hello, thank you 2020, and now 2021 saying, oh yeah, hold my beer. We've got to really get to the point where we realize that life is not going to give us exactly what we want. Neither will the game. Josh, Fish, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean that's true. It's been a different year, that's for sure. I hope it doesn't carry on through 2021 and we have a completely different year. But I just don't see that popping up right away. I just don't.
Josh?
Yeah, I kind of foresee that we are still going to have some issues coming into the new year. I think out of abundance of caution, a lot of these leagues are going to continue to keep up some of these protocols. One thing I am really hoping for, though, is that we see some holdovers from what they did this year, like the extended practice squad and the ability to bring people up twice from the practice squad in the NFL. I think that was great. Personally, I want to keep that forever. That was awesome, getting to see guys brought up and play a couple of games, guys that might not always get a chance otherwise, and help us fill
some
holes.
Guys that really took advantage of it too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it was great. I mean, Shaquem Griffin is a great example, as he came up and he balled out, and so they're like, you know what? Yeah. I think we got to keep this guy around because he's showing up to plays and he's putting his heart on the field and going for it. And we got to see Alex Collins again in this last game, and how he looks so good after sitting for how long and not playing forever. I mean, the guy's got talent, and I guess we saw he could run when he moved over to Chris's team over there in Baltimore and had almost 1,000-yard season over there. Just needs a good O-line, right? But his river dancing celebration, by the way, top 10. That was
I like
great.
that.
I'm kind of mixed on whether or not there's an asterisk, because I mean it's reality for everyone, for one. However, I do agree that Ohio State, I mean, because they played so many less games, had Toronto, for example, won the MLS Cup. Thankfully, they didn't. But I mean, most of their games were against Montreal and Vancouver. I mean, how does that really be indicative of winning a championship? So I'm kind of mixed about it. But
Ohio State's kind of a special case because there's not a football team around that wouldn't benefit from having 4 bye weeks. But at the same time, if you go back and look like at World War II baseball, where all the best players were overseas, you don't see asterisks next to those seasons either.
Exactly.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, you just see hyphens for those teams. Even in football, the Phil Pitt Steagles, you see some creative names. They merged. They did what it took to make it work.
Yeah.
Well, guys, though, some people are saying that Trevor Lawrence didn't get the recognition or the shot that he should have had at the Heisman Trophy this year. Not to take away from Devontae Smith at all, but, some of that may have had to do with COVID.
You know what? I know that Trevor Lawrence is a man of God, and I believe that, without having seen any of his response, I know that young man, his thought is, hey, if the Lord wanted me to have that, I would have had it, and
Amen.
I'm moving on. I'm sure that he is ready to just take the next step and keep on going. And I am sad because I do feel like Clemson really should have been in the national championship game. All things being considered, the way the Big Ten finagled it, Clemson should have been there. Look, they were Ohio State just looked faster, and we know that's not true. Like, that's not true. They're not faster.
Oh, no way.
But they looked so much more fresh in that game. And so I'm just saying that would have been nice, but I'm looking forward to seeing wherever he lands in the league, and I'm looking forward to following his career.
Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars better hope that they make the right decision and pick him, because they got to start someplace to rebuild that terrible franchise.
Wait,
So
are we out on Minshew mania? Is that we giving up on Minshew?
Given the choice?
I mean, that's a good question, Josh, because I really feel like he's delivered down there. So I think it just matters what kind of coaching regime that they bring in. And by the way, Josh, your idea of keeping the expanded practice squad, I think that can happen if you consider that they're looking at expanding the schedule. They're looking at adding a 17th game and maybe an 18th game. Now that would be grounds to expand practice squad. So maybe all that can
absolutely
happen.
That would be the proper way to use it, because then you don't have all of your number one guys who are dinged up in a particular week having to go because you have players to draw from that know your system, Chris. I think that's the biggest advantage there. You could get guys off the practice squad that know your system already.
You know what I'm hearing here is what we like to get to is the God story in a couple ways. One, what Chris Brown said, what Trevor Lawrence is probably, has to. You just get that way as you walk down a road of faith, when you're tried and you're tested, just like in the game of life, just like on the game on the field. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And the championship isn't everything, because in the end, we really do win. It is how you play the game and finding joy and learning and growing. If we never lost a game in our career, Coach Fish, I've watched you play when we were in high school. You won some, you lost some. If you never lost a game, you would never be the coach that you are today, the man that you are today, and you wouldn't be the player that you had become. Would you agree?
That's true. I mean, absolutely. By losing, you learn how to make adjustments. You learn to push yourself. You learn to work harder, for an end goal. Mine went on for 22 years, but and I was just kept improving and improving. Even at older, if you put in the work, and that's the game you love, things fall into place.
There you go.
And when I didn't get picked up by the NFL or CFL, I figured, all right, I'll just stay longer. I'll be the guy that played the longest, and semi-pro, and I'll get my Hall of Fame ring. So there was an end goal, even though I didn't get, the big money from the NFL or the CFL.
And I'm going to tell you something else about Tom Fisher. He doesn't talk a lot about, his own, tooting his own horn. But I'll toot it for a moment and tell you, he's worked with a lot of young men who needed a strong, godly male figure. When he could be working, Tom is talented enough to be working in the NFL, to be coaching in the NFL. He's talented enough that I would like, as the XFL gets up and going, maybe he'll get taken up there. That would be great. But I've never heard him complain about that, even though I know he'd love to do that, because he's worked with so many young men, as you have experienced, Garrett, too, in coaching, working with so many young men, being able to be a godly light and a guide in a time where men, we've talked about on the show, if you didn't hear Wednesday's show, dedicated to men, and how men are looked down on, laughed at. You're a joke. You're incompetent. You're the reason the world is the way it is. No, men, you're part of the equation, and having a strong, godly, good man, that's what we need in this day and age, and you guys are doing it. So that's part of the lesson too. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think on the sports arena too, I mean, all of us have been involved either as a player, a coach, a fan, a reporter, or whatever, but it is such a great place to learn how to handle adversity, because you can't, I mean, every area of life you have adversity, but sports is like, you lost a game. Oh, darn, in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. If you're a high school kid and it's a state championship, it's like, it feels like your whole life has just ended. But when you go through those experiences, you learn that. And if you are in a position of influence with the other people who are playing, or the people that you're covering or whatever, it just helps people to take those experiences and turn them into those learning and adjustments experiences, as opposed to, my life just ended because I lost.
I think the key really is presence. I mean, to be there, my middle son paid me one of the highest compliments I've ever gotten, which is that, Dad, I've been watching you and I've caught more than you've taught. I've caught.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, thank you, God.
That's amazing.
But I think
knowing him, that really is amazing.
You do know him.
Oh, my kids can eventually say the same, and they're not thinking I've caught more than something like COVID.
In a good way, yeah. No, but the point being, and what Coach was talking about, I think is really key, because and what Brent mentioned in terms of the fact that, and bringing in the God story, is that I think sometimes Christians can just be milquetoast, and I don't think that God calls us to that. And I think we should be passionate. I think we should be engaged. I think we should be competitive. And
can I give you a little secret from a woman's point of view? We kind of talk about y'all behind your back. We do that. And
no surprise.
Women, Christian women sometimes have a problem with milquetoast Christian guys. I mean, who wants to date someone like that? You just, it's just not that attractive. So men, as you're listening right now, no more milquetoast. There's also a movement, and this is outside of the sports realm, but there's a movement, no more Christian nice girls. I don't know if you've heard of that movement, but the idea is that in the spirit of, we must be submissive, we must, we want to be forgiving and relational. Women have allowed themselves to be treated horribly, and allowed men in particular to walk all over them without saying, hey, this is not okay. It doesn't mean we have to be Christian women who are, carrying around AK-47s. And we're just saying that, we can't be milquetoast either. So there's a place to stand up and be real. I just have a book title that just came to me: Between Macho and Milquetoast. Because I honestly, I don't believe in the machismo thing either, because I think that is wrong, because then that's all about pride and puffing oneself up. So and again, I mean, Jesus walked that line between macho and milquetoast. I mean, he was to be feared and to be revered, but he was humble and he was gracious, and so I think that's how we need to be as men.
Hey, Garrett, I got your cover.
He took on no reputation, and you know that scripture, and came in the likeness of man, and being found in the image of the man, he humbled himself unto death, even the death of the cross. Amen, amen. And that book, I get the first interview.
Well, okay. I get the cover.
Tell me the cover,
I got a cover already, Garrick. I got you in the middle. First of all, on one side, we have a huge life-size piece of toast, like it's milk toast. On the other side, got like a huge, like, machismo bodybuilder, like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was young thing. And you in the middle like this.
There you go.
I got you, man.
Between macho and milquetoast. Okay.
All right. We're expecting it. Good things there.
All right.
Okay. So I want to switch gears and ask if anybody watched the junior hockey game between Canada and the
USA.
Yeah.
All the way. I mean, 2-0 for the USA, a junior world championship. That's exactly the type of thing that the NHL needs and hockey in the United States needs. And that's exactly what it was a great.
Yeah, but for our Canadian viewers and listeners right now, how did that feel, Josh? Anyone?
I mean, I'm sure it didn't feel good. I mean, that's their sport, right?
Yeah. That is their sport.
We are the invaders in this instance, but I think they had it coming. So.
Ooh.
Been a long time coming.
He's pretty brave.
He's getting the Vancouver-Seattle hockey rivalries. He's getting the Seattle-Vancouver hockey rivalry going now.
Firing it up, yeah.
Got to start it up right now.
Canucks and
some of those kids may be cracking draft prospects in several months.
Yeah.
And they're just getting ready to beat up on some Canadians in a year or so.
I mean,
Well,
who else is excited for hockey to start, the NHL? And for those of us with a bit of a Seattle bent, this will be our inaugural year for the Seattle Kraken, which is pretty cool. And do not forget, back in 1917, Seattle won the first Stanley Cup. They weren't the Kraken then, but they won the Stanley Cup. So we've
The
got
Metropolitans.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Rich,
Hey,
you got
you
some
know,
competition, Mr. Sports Encyclopedia.
Well, I lived in Michigan for 20 years, and it was during one of the stretches where the Red Wings were really good. And, you know, I mean, every sport is unique, but there is definitely, it's fun when you have a hockey team that gets on a good run. The rivalry they had with the Colorado Avalanche in those days was as intense as anything you'd ever see from well, UNC Duke basketball or Michigan Ohio State football.
Notice you didn't say Seattle Portland soccer.
Yeah, well, when you get the goaltenders coming to blows at mid ice in the middle of a game, there's a rivalry for you.
That's real hockey.
I'd say it's a little more similar to some of the soccer rivalries you see in other countries
in
or
Europe,
Europe.
Yep.
The violence.
The cup is a unique trophy too, because the players from the winning team each get a week with it or something like that, as they kind of go back home. They get to take it with them and show it off to their communities and stuff, and then they pass it on to someone else. And you don't see that with Super Bowl trophies or so I'm looking forward to it. I haven't followed the Red Wings since they dropped off the competitive ledge, and it'll be great to see the Kraken come on board and see what happens. Hopefully they can be like Vegas and get to the Stanley Cup Finals in the first year.
Yeah.
Well, the expansion draft rules for the NHL are going to be the exact same rules that they used for Las Vegas, and Seattle just announced that they have their assistant GM to go along with Ron Francis. His name escapes me right at the moment, but once again, the Kraken making all the right moves in the off season to set up that fan base and to set up that foundation for a successful franchise. And as we look at it this way, only 9 months to go.
Well, you had mentioned too, Rich, in other broadcasts that you think the Kraken, for some reason, is it a hope, or do you really think that the Kraken have a shot at really making a big impression and bringing it home? Maybe,
well,
I don't know, going all the way. What?
No. What I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna give you a realistic expectation, and I think I said this last week, and this was why one of my predictions for 2021 was that the Kraken will make the NHL playoffs. And I believe that's because of the way that they have structured the expansion draft and are going to be using the same rules that allowed Las Vegas to make such a leap forward in their very first year. As long as they keep those same rules and run the expansion draft that way, they are going to have a chance, because professional teams have learned that you want expansion teams to be somewhat successful so you can sell tickets and you can sell merchandise.
Yeah, it's not like the old days, like when most of us remember when the Seahawks and Mariners started. The rules in those days were stacked against the new teams, and so it could take forever to become competitive. The Mariners are still working on it, and it's been almost the Seahawks. The Seahawks had winning records their third and fourth seasons. They didn't make the playoffs, but that was considered like one of the gold standards for expansion franchises at the time.
Yes, it was.
Took Tampa Bay a lot longer.
When the Seahawks had their 5-9 record in their second year of 1977.
It's a big achievement.
That was the best second year record at that time by an NFL team in history. And that record wasn't broken until 1995, when both the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe, came out with winning seasons and made the playoffs.
11-5.
Yeah. But
okay,
until
Rich, you can have your sports encyclopedia title back.
Oh, I got some for you. I got some for you every week. So hey, don't worry about it. We got 52 weeks to go. We got 51 weeks to go. I'll make sure that there's something every week for you, man.
It's awesome.
You rock. So you know what the Seahawks had for Josh on Sunday? Josh turned 30 on Sunday. And Josh, you said you and Russ had an agreement, right?
Yeah, he said he was going to win that game for me, so I was pretty confident the whole day. I didn't really worry about it.
That's really awesome. Yeah,
and
going to take care of that one.
For those who are Seahawks fans that are listening or viewing right now, you hear me. You got me when I say this, right? That it's really nice to watch a game where by the end of the game, you're not thinking that you may need that defibrillator.
Yeah, where are my paddles? Yeah.
Where's the epinephrine? Where's the medication?
Well, and there was also no pressure for us on that game at that point in terms of the results of the game either, because either way, I don't think anything would have changed.
We were locked in at that point.
Yeah, but it's momentum.
Yeah, sure.
It's
sure.
momentum.
You don't want to lose going into the
There's a lot less hand wringing than it would have been.
Wouldn't the Rams have won the
talking.
division if they won?
No, we locked up
We
the
had 2
division
games
by
out.
beating the Rams last week, or sorry, the week before.
We had a 2-game. We had a 2-game lead, and it
Oh,
ended up. Yeah, so
I thought that was for the division title.
Yeah. So and Josh,
that's because
you
they
and I
lost.
were talking-
Because when they played the Rams, it was for the division title. If the Rams had won, Seahawks and Rams would have finished tied, but the Rams would have swept. But when the Seahawks won, they pushed them two games back with 1 game to go.
Right.
So that Jets loss hurt the Rams, or could have hurt the Rams.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, big thank you to the Dolphins for beating everyone else in the NFC West and helping us get that title.
Right.
I'm a Dolphins fan now. Go Tua.
Wait. Let me make a point on that, Michelle. That's actually a great segue. First of all, I do want to say this. I want to get back to Garrick's book and the title. Garrick, I got an example, okay, between milquetoast and machismo. Now, right here, that's machismo right there. Okay, just so you know, it would look something like this. Okay.
Perfect.
By the way, David Baker is nowhere near milquetoast, and Rich Awesome is not machismo. He's just a man's man. So I just want to. Hey,
the check is in the mail, Chris. I promise.
Long overdue for this book. No, hey, listen, I got an idea, because the NFC East, maybe the NFC East, by not having, winning records and just horrible play and stuff like that. Well, I was thinking somebody jokingly wrote, I don't know if you saw this, Josh, somebody jokingly wrote on Twitter, and I jumped on it. The Ravens if the Ravens don't make it through the AFC, they should be given the NFC East title, because we were 4-0 against the NFC East and we got a winning record. None of them have a winning record. And I was like, "What? That's a brilliant idea. What if we came up with something called the winning compensation, something like that, where if your division does not produce a winning record for the division winner, then if there is another team, and it has to be from the other conference, but if there's another team from the other conference that has a winning record and a winning record against your division, they are credited with that division crown, because y'all don't deserve it.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Sort of an NFL relegation.
Excellent idea, because you're rewarding mediocrity is what you're doing.
Right.
Hey, that is the way of the world. Everyone gets a participation medal. Come on.
I just love the whining coming out of New York this week after. I mean, I know Philadelphia that didn't really compete in that game, but the whining coming out of New York from Giants fans about their 6-10 team not making the playoffs.
Right.
Like, you have no room whatsoever to complain about anything
that was
anybody
not
else
Philadelphia's fault that they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
Okay, Garrick, I got another hot one for you.
Okay, bring it on.
This is a trivia question that I don't think anybody on this panel may know, maybe besides Brent. If we talk about losing teams making the playoffs, there was actually a Canadian Football League team, early 1980s, The Ottawa Rough Riders, captained and quarterbacked by J.C. Watts, a follower of Christ, went 3-13 on the regular season and played Edmonton, those historic Edmonton Eskimos teams, in the Grey Cup and eventually lost. But there is a precedent. There you go for a precedent. I believe the year was 1981.
And this encyclopedia moment was brought to you by Rich.
You took me down on that one.
wait. I thought the obvious reference is weren't the Seahawks 7-9 NFC West champs the year of the beast mode run in the playoffs?
Yep.
They beat the defending champion, Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints, and that's where we had the beast quake.
The beast mode run, yeah.
Yep.
I think Carolina, when they were 7-8-1, they also not only won their division but a playoff game too. So here we go. Washington football team over Tampa Bay. That's my bold call this week.
Well, they have a defensive.
Hey, that could happen.
They have a
It's not
defensive
out of the realm
line
of
that can
possibility.
rush the passer. They have a defensive line that can rush the passer.
Okay,
And a passer that can't move.
I need to ask this question though: does Canadian football count as football, or is that?
Hey.
You haven't
Oh
played
yes, oh yes, it does.
Ask Warren Moon that
Yes, ask
question.
Warren Moon. Ask Warren Moon that question.
Exactly.
Look,
You haven't lived until
they
you've
have
won
their
by
goalposts
overtime
like out in
rules.
front of the end zone. Like things are weird over there. I don't know, man.
If we're going to talk about esports, we got to talk about the Canadian Football League.
But Michelle, there's a sponsorship opportunity here to our listeners. So if you want us to be the sponsor of our encyclopedia moment, Rich will bring it every week, and Michelle will negotiate with you the terms of being
This
our
encyclopedia
sponsor.
Someone get
moment brought to you
Britannica on
by
the phone.
Bengay.
But actually, Chris and I were discussing this. We need to come up with a appropriate sound effect for that, because we are in the 21st century. So the encyclopedia doesn't have a sound effect, does it?
Oh, gosh, you're right.
We can
Wow.
we make a ruffling book sound?
Or no, wouldn't that just be a Clippy popping up?
Just
How could I help?
slam the book down on the table. Bang.
Yeah.
There we go.
Encyclopedia moment.
This gives pause. Is there a segment of our listeners that don't know what an encyclopedia is?
Right? Perhaps.
It rhymes with Wikipedia. so
Exactly.
might be able to look it up there.
And Wikipedia is not an official encyclopedia source. If
It
our
is not.
listeners don't already know,
Yeah, but we don't have door to door Wikipedia salesmen though. So there's that.
Wikipedia is a dangerous place for young minds.
It is. Talk about fact checking.
It's all about Google Siri searches. We got to say something like Google Rich or something like that.
Maybe there's a Google Siri voice for Rich.
So, guys, moving forward with NFL playoffs and making our way towards the Super Bowl, any thoughts, predictions, and the game on Saturday? I'm actually flying out so that I can watch a game with actual people. Yes, I will take protective measures. You have to these days, but I'm in a heavy lockdown state. I just wanted to go with some friends and be able to have a small group.
Do you have a Seahawks mask?
Boom. I do. Have a
Okay,
Seahawks
good.
mask. So I'm good. I'll be
Perfect.
decked. So
Send us pictures. Post pictures on MyMichelleLive.
Oh, heck yeah. I know, though, we're going to be looking at a couple of teams that really know each other well, the Rams and the Seahawks for Saturday's game. Looking forward, Seahawks aren't the only team to talk about. So I want to just kind of open it up. Let's start with Tom Fisher. Your thoughts as we move forward for the Seahawks, for the playoffs, who we might see in the final showdown.
Well, obviously we're facing the Rams next week, and we're very familiar with each other and what's going on. I believe that we're going to be facing a different quarterback, and so hopefully we aren't flat like we were last week in the whole second and third quarter, and then come to life in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
lulls me to sleep too. But so who we see after that, which will probably be New Orleans. I'm not trying to look past the Rams, but I think we do take the Rams out.
Ourselves.
Right, but I mean, Drew Brees, he's legit. And if it wasn't for a bad call last year, they probably would have been Super Bowl champs. So I don't know. Seattle, we just got to take one game at a time, get in the game, put your foot on the throttle, and go.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
I think one of the big things here is that for the first time in a while, we have our full force offensive line going. When this offensive line, when all of these guys are on the field, we're 5-0. And we have a much worse record in the rest of the games played without
they're 5-0 and averaging 30 points a game with the healthy offensive line.
Yeah, huge.
That was exactly my point going to be is our offensive line, I think, is key, as we saw in the last game.
Now,
in the first 3 quarters of last game.
Sorry, Garrett. Seattle's 2-0 against the Rams this season, yes?
2-1.
No,
1-1. 1-1.
Yeah, 1-1.
Ahead. Going to be 2-1.
The defensive turnaround really started in the second half of the
That's
first
exactly
Rams
what I was
game.
going to mention, Brent.
So it's like they kind of found themselves because they were getting blown out at halftime, but then they held the Rams to like 1 score after halftime, and then no touchdowns the last time they played them. I think, like others have said, the offensive line being back together is huge because Aaron Donald is still going to be a problem. I honestly think with the offensive line together, it's not so much keeping Donald from sacking Wilson, but establishing the run game in a way that they've been trying to do for weeks. But if they can get that going, then the play action will open wide up for them. But if you lose, Brandon Shell again or one of those guys, it could be a real problem. And I think the offensive line staying healthy is going to be the key to the offense, like returning to something resembling fully functional that we had earlier in the season. And the defense, it's kind of about health right now. I mean, how effective is Jamal Adams going to be? How effective is Jaron Reed going to be? How effective is Shaquille Griffin going to be? All those guys are dinged up. If 2 of those 3 guys are close to the top of their game, I feel really good about this game and going forward.
Jamal Adams will play with 1 arm.
He will, but
Jamal Adams will play with
no arms.
It's true. That's true. But how effective will it be? That's more my concern. I think this game, they can afford not to have them all at the top of their game if they're playing hurt. But if they're playing the Saints in a week with Alvin Kamara, and I don't know if Michael Thomas would be back for the Saints. But that changes the whole dynamic there. Drew Brees, I'm not too worried. Not as worried about him as I would have been 5 years ago, say. I mean, he's still as smart as they are. He can't throw deep anymore, but he's got some scary weapons around him that the defense, we'll find out if the Seahawks get through this week. We'll find out next week how real this defensive turnaround has been.
Well,
okay, guys, I see the villain sign going up.
Yes.
So prepare
the villain's ready.
He's worried about them
yourself. Yeah, it's about to happen.
I'm a villain. I'm the most chilling villain.
So you know what? I amped up to the villains. I wasn't gonna be this, but the more I think about it, I was like, "Yep."
You want to pray about it first?
This
you
is
want to pray on it first, brother?
Huh?
You want to pray on it first, brother?
I might need to. This is a villain moment. So wait a minute, folks. Wait, hold on. The Seahawks, their last opponent in the season was who?
49ers.
Okay, so that was meaningless. So that was a meaningless win
Pretty
for
much.
the Seahawks, basically. The Rams are already out of it. And the Rams are without Jared Goff, but there's a factor in the Rams game that the Seahawks have not seen before, and that's that young quarterback out of my hometown in North Carolina, as far as college goes, Wake Forest, Wofford. That boy's a runner, y'all. He is not Goff, a statue in the pocket. He is super athletic comparatively, and he's also a gamer. And you know what? I would not be surprised if he came in there and gave you some wrinkles that you're not ready for a little bit.
That might be, although Pete Carroll said in his a few of his press conferences, he's been talking it up. And last one I saw, he was saying they are preparing for either eventualities in the quarterbacking staffing of the game this weekend. So they say they're ready.
I do think the Rams are better off with Walford playing, to be honest. I still see this as a game the Seahawks should win if they play the way they can.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the Seahawks are well prepared for that. I mean, I agree. I think Walford is the better option here.
Jared Goff must play.
Jared Goff is the guy that can be good, but really
for the Rams to have any shot, because Wofford needs help from Cooper Kupp and his other teammates who are good, and the Ram defense is going to have to play out of its mind, and Aaron Donald has to get 3-4 sacks on Russell Wilson to even keep the game close.
I actually like Walford better. I think Jared Goff, if he's playing here with his injured thumb, I mean, he did not look good a couple weeks ago in terms of like how uncomfortable we made him. Anytime he got out of the pocket or a chance to run, the guy looked scared. He was falling all over himself.
Oh yeah.
So
sliding early and yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he would be the best option here, but I do think that Walford, I think we're prepared for that kind of thing. I mean, look at how our linebackers have been playing this year. KJ Wright moving over to the Sam spot has just been absolutely destroying that edge. He's, called the screen master for a reason, but he's also setting that edge. You're not seeing people pop out and get it out on his side of the field anymore. Jordan Brooks flying around, Bobby Wagner, 6-time first team All-Pro. He's the 11th linebacker to do that in history, and the first 10 are all Hall of Famers. So our linebacker core that's been a huge part of why our defense has been so good. We've been keeping the edge going. We've been shooting those gaps, and I've been impressed with our secondary as well. But I think we're prepared for what Walford can bring. But I do think he's the better option if the Rams want to have a chance.
I agree with you, and it's to me, it's not so much. Are we prepared, but have we solidified? Because we did take a good portion of the year to bring ourselves together. We've had some hits and misses. We've been, now are we finally lined up? Are we going to stay lined up? Is this our year? I guess that will remain to be seen as we watch the game on Saturday, and I'll be in a public place. I'm so excited. But it is time for us to take our final shot where we go around the round table and give a shout out, a thought, or mention to something that we want to bring to your attention. So let us start with Brent Baker, since he is in the upper corner of the Brady Bunch squares that we're
I am not in the upper corner from my perspective here. So.
You aren't?
You are in mine.
Mine too.
As I'm delaying here.
He's trying to come up with something.
Trying to come up with something. Oh, hey, how about I will take a shot at the Cleveland, soon to be formerly known as Indians. I don't know how they're going to manage that, but so they traded away a potential future Hall of Famer in Francisco Lindor to the New York Mets. The New York Mets should be like the Seattle Mariners' favorite team, because they served as kind of our farm club when we didn't have a farm system, because that's where we got Jared Kelenic and others from. They have a new general manager, the Mets do. And so they may have actually won this trade by getting Lindor and Carlos Carrasco for some minor leaguers that aren't like their top flight guys, because Lindor only has like 1 year left on his contract. So anyway, the Mets are resurrected, and I guess I kind of have to give kudos to them for making a move that actually looks like it'll work for them. And I'm sorry to you Cleveland Indians fans that may be out there who will lose your nickname and apparently the identity of your team now, with your best player now in New York.
Yeah, that's
I think we should just call everybody that football team from Seattle, that football team from Washington, that football team from.
Yeah, please come up with a name, because
let's just do away with nicknames altogether. How's that?
See.
Football franchise.
All right, let's go with Rich Hallstrom.
Well, I got to say, I'm going to give a shout out to Dodgers Hall of Fame manager Tommy Lasorda, passed away this morning at the age of 93. World Series champion in 1988, thanks to Kirk Gibson and a very famous home run. But Tommy Lasorda, a man who loved the game of baseball, also coached the United States in the Olympics in the 1980s, and he will be sorely missed.
Yeah.
He was with the Dodgers longer than Vin Scully, if you can imagine that. And, Vin Scully, started announcing for them when they were still in Brooklyn in the early 50s, and Lasorda was with them longer. So that's a lifer.
Well, I'm going to give my shout out to DK Metcalf and Steve Largent. I mean, I do have to give a shout out to Tyler Lockett. There was a couple for our beloved Seahawks. There were a couple records broken, and that's pretty cool. But I really like this story where Seahawks legend, man of God, Pro Football Hall of Famer Steve Largent delivered a message to DK Metcalf after watching the receiver, DK, break Largent's franchise record for receiving yards in a single season. It was like over 1,200, 1,287. Metcalf ultimately finished the 2020 season with 1,303. So there you go, to put it in perspective. And I'm going to see if I can play this soundbite for you. See if you guys can hear it. Let's try it. Let's give it a go. Steve?
Hey, DK, Steve Largent here. Want to say congratulations on the great year you're having so far, and wish you the best in the future games and hopefully on into the playoffs. And I wanted to show you what I've got on here. Look at that. Get my arm out far enough. Yeah, got my DK jersey on. How about that, buddy? Yes,
so
sir.
Cool.
I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of the way you're playing. You're playing hard, and you're playing tough. And I love to see that out there on the field. And just want to wish you all the best in the.
Yeah, I thought that was great. He was wearing a DK Metcalf jersey. I don't know if you could hear that effectively, but that was pretty cool. So that's the way it's done. That's the way it's done. So there you go. All right, who's next?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll shout out to Tyler Lockett, who, not to be outdone by the yards of DK Metcalf, came away with 100 receptions on the season, breaking the franchise record for most receptions in a season. So he didn't want to be outdone there. He wanted to say, like, hey, no, don't forget me. I'm still worthy of being a number one guy too. So I'm here.
Brian Blade's record, or whose record was that?
That was also large.
And
that was Baldwin.
That was Baldwin's single season record. Yeah.
And the 100th catch coming on the game-winning touchdown, that was pretty awesome too.
That was great. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love Tyler Lockett. I think he's smaller than me. I like it. Garrick.
I'm going to give my final shot. I don't think that he would classify as a Seahawks legend, but he was a former Seahawks player. He's become a friend of mine over the years, and actually spoke to my fellowship group yesterday.
I'm so sorry I missed that.
That's okay. I'll actually send you the Zoom, and you can post it up on MyMichelle. But Jeff Kemp is a guy who just
he's a legend to me, man.
He's an amazing guy, and he started the nonprofit organization Stronger Families that I was a part of for about 8 years, and he's now just speaking into the lives of men and families, and went over and was with Family Life for a while, but just a great leader, a great man, but just humble as well. And when Michelle posts that, it's worth watching, because he just gives us some really great encouragement. His father, of course, was Jack Kemp, who was a vice presidential candidate with Bob Dole. He was the HUD secretary. But there's so many things that we can glean from people who have been in the spotlight, been in the limelight, but they live a life of humility. And
Amen.
Steve Largent, Jim Zorn, Jeff Kemp, we can say all those names together because those are some great Seahawk players. So
You
my
go.
final shot goes to Jeff.
And here's an insignificant entry for your encyclopedic mind, Rich. Jeff Kemp is actually the #1 sports figure that of all sports figures that I've interviewed him more than any other. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's
Like
a
that
great show of character by Jeff, day in and day out.
Yeah.
I have so many stories when he was backup quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks that we could go on and on about just being a good teammate and supporting the people around you and knowing your role. And I know that he learned that from his dad, because his dad was a great person of service, both in politics and out of politics. So
Yep.
Jeff had an excellent example of what it means to be a man.
All right, I've kind of lost track of who's talked and who's not.
I think Chris
Chris is
is
the only one that's-
Chris is
Chris
who's
has had
left.
lots of time to think.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Chris,
Or
bring
have
it
stuff
home.
stolen from him.
Yeah,
I don't think
changed-
any of
I've
us
changed
stole
about
yours.
4 times, but I do want to say I third and fourth and fifth and sixth the Jeff Kemp shout out and nod. He's what an awesome man of God. I've really appreciated seeing him here and there. Even going back to his days as a Ram, he was very significant as an LA Ram, wherever they were when he was. Well, it was LA. But and his dad, who, by the way, segue, his dad plays for these Buffalo. He played for these.
He
Buffalo
was a
Bills.
Bill.
He was
Yep.
a legendary, quarterback for these Buffalo Bills, and they have a big game coming up this weekend. Okay, huge game, and I think everybody's high on the Bills. Here's what I see: I see the Bills a lot like the Ravens were last year. Coming in sky high and ready to just knock out anybody as far as we would think. But the truth is bam! Don't go to sleep on those Colts. Not so fast, my friend. The Colts in an upset this weekend. They're taking out the Bills.
Rivers.
It's possible.
My shout out is actually to my quarterback. I don't even think I've done an official shout out for Lamar Jackson. Let me tell you something. Lamar Jackson addresses press members in the Zooms and the conferences as Mr. and Mrs. a lot of times. And he was recently asked, why do you do that? Why do you address, this reporter as, Mr. Clifton Brown or whomever? He said, because I was taught respect. And if I was working as if I was a reporter, I'd want to be respected. So that's why I address you all as Mr. and Mrs. when I answer.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
And that is leadership. That young man has just turned 24, and people expecting the world of him. But there are many quarterbacks, Rich will back me on this, who won nothing in their first 3 years as far as playoff games, and that includes Mr. Manning. That includes Mr. Peyton Manning.
Yes, it does.
Didn't sniff a playoff win. So I'm looking forward to number 8, purple. I think they'll be wearing white this weekend, showing the world a couple things.
You guys think that Chris is at home with his little
that
miniature
was awesome.
helmet?
Yeah.
Played. Is that what he does in his spare time?
Those are nice props every week. You
I
gotta,
know, I
you
like
gotta do
it.
that every week, man.
Liken back to the days of Mr. Bill.
They're my favorite ball, guys. I'm going to toss it because it is time to wrap it up. We'll be looking forward to the game. Sometimes the fun of the game for me is some of the things that you guys bring up when we message on Facebook. That's a lot of fun for me too. So I will look forward to that. And thanks for listening. As you're listening or as you're watching, this is what the God story is about. It's the struggle, it's the ups and downs of life, but finding somewhere to camp your faith, finding somewhere to ground your life, and that is in the living God. So if you're interested in the God story and you're like, what's this all about, these crazy people, you want more information, go to MyMichelleLive. You can email me and I'll talk God story with you all day long. So will these guys too. If you like what you hear, like it, share it, tell your friends. Let's get that word out, because in this time in America, we're hurting. We are experiencing anxiety. We don't know what's going on next. Men's hearts will fail them, but I am telling you, there is a living God. This God is real. This God is impacting and life-changing, and he loves you. So you hear this story, you want other people to know about it, share it. We love you. Thanks for tuning in.